Welcome to another educational video from Physio Fitness in Maidenhead. Today we're going to look at the elbow. So if I zoom into the elbow, we can see here the bones that make up the elbow joint. So from the top we have the humerus that starts in the shoulder. The humerus works its way all the way down into one point on the inside of the elbow and one point on the outside of the elbow. And then into the forearm we have two bones. We have the ulna that starts as a large bone at the top and goes to a little thin bone at the end. And then the radius that does the opposite. So it starts as a small bone here and then goes up and ends up being a large bone at the wrist. So this area is the wrist, as you can see there. And if we go back up to the elbow, we can see how the elbow moves. So if I go to the side now, if we're looking from the side, you can see that the elbow hinges around itself. It bends upwards like this, and then it bends down into a straight position. And this bone at the back of the elbow here is what we lean on when we rest our elbow on a table. Okay, if I turn the elbow round now to look from the outside, so this is the outside of the elbow, you can see there that as I bend the elbow up, the radius has to move around that bone there at the end, and that's nicely rounded to allow that to happen into a straight position, and then it comes up into that bent position. So if we look at the ulna, which is this bone here, okay, that fits, it's got a scoop here that fits quite tightly into the humerus, which is this bone. So they fit quite tightly together and they are a hinge joint. That only goes backwards and forwards, okay, into flexion here and extension here. Now, the radius, on the other hand, this bone, the head of the radius, and this bone that comes down here, this is slightly different. It allows flexion and extension, so it allows that hinging of the elbow. But what it also does is, if I show you what happens with the wrist as we turn the palm of the hand from being uppermost, if we turn it over so the palm faces down, you can see at the elbow there that what actually happens is the radius pivots and it rotates. And that's why the elbow and the top of the radius, that part of it, is called a pivot joint, because it allows rotation like that. It allows the pivoting motion, which is why our elbows can go into flexion and extension, and also into pronation and supination, or basically turning the hand upwards and turning the hand downwards. And you can see there the radius, this bone here, the reason it's called the radius is because it goes around the ulna. So it crosses over, and that's why it's called the radius, because it goes round the ulna, and the ulna stays perfectly still. So if we look at the muscles that comprise the elbow, the main muscles that we have, and I'm going to do this in very broad detail, is the forearm muscles that come up. So you have the flexor muscles in the forearm that come up to this part of the elbow on the inner point, and that's where sometimes people get things like golfer's elbow. And on the outside you have the extensor. So the extensor muscles come down the outside of the forearm here, and they insert onto the outside of the elbow, or the lateral epicondyle, and that's what gives you tennis elbow sometimes and pain on the outside of the elbow. So they're the forearm muscles that come across the elbow, again in broad detail. The main flexor or bending motion of the elbow is from the biceps. So the biceps start up in the shoulder region, they come down the front of the arm, and it inserts onto that blue dot there, okay, the main part of the biceps. So when the biceps contracts and gets smaller, it pulls the elbow into a bent position, and when it relaxes, it allows the elbow to straighten. It also has other movements, but I'm not going to discuss that in this video. So if we turn the skeleton round from the back and we look from the shoulder, again, the triceps, the muscle at the back of the arm, comes all the way down here and inserts onto this point of the elbow here. So when this one tightens, when your tricep tightens and contracts, what it does is it pulls the arm into a straight position. So when you're doing a press up or something, or a pushing type motion, this tricep muscle shortens and straightens the elbow because it pulls on this bone. And you can see that when it pulls on this bone travels and goes into this little socket at the back of the elbow joint there. Okay, and that is a broad detail of the elbow joint.